and welcome to an episode of the Whitehead Monckton podcast hosted by myself, Tom Elstone, and Jess Elphick.
Hi.
This podcast is to cover the trainee application process for training contracts to Whitehead Monckton. Should note it's also not training contracts, it might be qualifying work experience with the changes, be that the introduction of the SQE.
Yeah, so just to start off, we should probably talk about our qualifications and how we've got here.
Mm-hmm.
So I did law at Durham University, so I did the straight 3 years, and then I graduated in July of 2022, and then started the LPC shortly after that. I did that in person at the London Moorgate campus, and then I had a few months to go on holiday, and then I started at Whitehead Monckton in September 2023, and I am in the corporate seat. So I've just started in corporate.
In contrast, I took a bit of a convoluted route in that I did history at undergrad at Exeter University and then converted to law with Cardiff University, doing the GDL, Graduate Diploma in Law. Following the GDL, obviously, I was then in the same position as Jess was, having finished her law undergrad. So I was able to do the LPC and did that with BPP at their Holborn campus in London. Obviously now the SQE has been introduced, and this is something that Jess and I aren't particularly familiar with, but our understanding is that we're able to accept applicants once they've done their SQE1 or are in the process of doing their SQE1. They'd be able to start once that is completed. And then you can do your qualifying work experience with Whiteheads while you're doing the SQE2. In terms of qualifications, I think Jess will touch on sort of what I got a 2-1 at uni in my undergrad. Jess will boast that she got...
I got first.
But these aren't necessities for your applications. If you do have a 2-2 or other, it could be that your application stands out in such a manner that you'll still be considered for the latter stages of the application process. Touching on that, Jess is going to speak on sort of stage 1 of the application process, which is...
Yeah, so you start off and you're going to do, it's pretty standard across most law firms, I think. You provide an application form, which will have some questions on it about why you've chosen law, why do you want to be a solicitor, things like that. And then you will have to provide a cover letter and a CV. I think just generic advice in terms of when you provide those is to keep them succinct, and I think for the CV there's general rule of thumb it should be about 2 pages max, and I think that's a good rule to have. Just try and remember that every employer that's reading all those documents that you provide will have read thousands before. So you want to make it really obvious to them why you stand out. So that's the best way to do that, is by being concise, I think. Also, I think we spoke about this a bit before, about how when we've reflected on what we provided to the firm during the process, a lot of what I was writing in my applications was just drawing on legal experience because I thought that's what they wanted. And actually, in reflection, I think it would be just as beneficial to touch on the non-legal stuff.
Yeah, I think you've just got to speak about what experiences you've had and why they've moulded you to be who you are. Both Jess and I didn't have loads of legal experience coming into Whitehead Monckton, and I think when making applications you are worried, or there's such a pressure of must have law background, but both of us were successful without necessarily having a massive legal CV. I actually downloaded my application, which I must have made like 2.5 years ago, and it wasn't a particularly pleasant read. But the one thing I would recommend is to get other people to read over that, be that lecturers at uni, friends who are also doing the LPC might be able to say things that they've had success doing. I myself got my parents to read it. They read all of my applications, and I think would be a bit peeved off if I didn't mention the fact that they did. But I think it's really important just to write about yourself, but reflect on why those experiences basically have benefited you. It's not a case of listing your achievements. It's explaining why those achievements are beneficial to, and why that stands out for Whitehead, to attract you to Whitehead Monckton.
Yeah, and why you'd be a good solicitor. So the second stage is you have to provide a video interview. So you have to video yourself beforehand. I believe you get all the instructions before of what topic you're going to be presenting on. And then it's basically a task. It's basically a research task, essentially. And you need to go away, research the topic they've told you about, and then present it with any way you would like. I think so. When it was a bit different for us because we did it in person in the assessment centre, but that's now fallen away. But my topic was lasting power of attorney. So it was a subject that I had never done before. I think the key here is to remember that you're going to be presenting to two directors who are very knowledgeable in the field. So it's not really, you need to remember when you're presenting that it's not about trying to explain the topic, although you are explaining it. It's more about trying to show you're personable, you're engaging, you can present well, you can talk to people. And I think that's the key takeaway.
I did mine on Calderbanks in family law, not something I had ever studied before, nor have I studied it since. I've never done a family law seat. And my presentation, I don't think, informed David and Daniel of anything as to do with Calderbanks. But I showed that I had researched quite hard, and I think I showed that I was personable. The presentation itself, I'm sure the standard of it was not revolutionary in any way, and it's not expected to be.
Yeah.
It is just showing that you can present and you can show confidence.
Yeah.
So, but it's you know, this video presentation is the purpose is to advocate for yourself, basically, and it gives you a good chance afterwards. You get asked questions. If you can show a periphery understanding, not just on the explicit question you get asked, but if you can also show an understanding of the area that you're discussing, I think that bodes well in a video application.
And that all really comes back up in the final stage, which is the interview in person. So you do that in Maidstone, and that was about 45 minutes to an hour, and it's the same thing. It's showing you're engaged in the legal industry, you're engaged in the firm, you're easy to get on with, you're friendly, you're approachable. It's the exact same.
Yeah, I think with an interview, I think it's important not to be robotic. As important as it is to read up on the firm and have an understanding of the culture, I think it's important that you are presenting yourself rather than presenting what you think the firm would want.
Yeah.
And reading off values that the firm has and how you perhaps reflect to that. I think it is just about trying to get on with those that are interviewing. I said to Jess yesterday that I thought it was quite an informal interview. She thought it was a touch more formal.
Yeah, that was the nerve setting.
It was very much chatty for my last quarter of an hour or so. So it's not something I think, having done it, it wouldn't have been something which I should have been quite as nervous as I was when I was travelling down for it. And then I think Jess also made the point, the tip that you got given.
Yeah. So in the interview, right at the beginning, it was a really nice analogy that they gave me about it being like a two-way street. And this whole process, the aim is for the firm to find someone that they like and they think that is going to get on with the team. They're going to provide good work ethic. They're going to be a good lawyer. But it's also, on the flip side, it's a chance for you to figure out if the firm's for you and you suit the firm so that you wake up and want to come to work. And I think having the employer say that to you in an interview setting was so nice and refreshing, to be honest, because it made you feel so relaxed. And I think that was a reason why I felt that the interview went well, because I felt more myself.
Yeah, I feel like you are supposed to learn as much as you are. There is pressure to get a training contract, understandably, but you've got to pick a firm that is right for you, regardless of there not being offer upon offer available for everyone. So you've got to treat it as a learning experience, learning what Whitehead Monckton is like. I knew when I left the interview that I really wanted the job, and I'd been to other assessment centres where I hadn't enjoyed it anywhere near as much and hadn't found it as engaging. And I think viewing it as a sort of a two-way street, you can put the ball into the interviewee's corner for a moment, and it relieves you of a bit of pressure. You're not always having to think on the spot. You're not getting question after question. It gives you a chance to show
Seems
engagement.
More mutual, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Are you right for each other?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much the whole process. If you are listening, do join us in our next podcast that we're doing on the trainee experience. So we're just going to talk about what seats we're in, the type of work we do, and what it's like to be a trainee.
thank you for listening. If you do want to go and find out any more information, you can do so by going to the careers section of the Whitehead Monckton website, that being whitehead-monckton.co.uk. You can also follow Jess and I on LinkedIn if needs be. Our name should be in the title of the podcast. You're more than welcome to message us and ask any questions. We are not that scary. Other than that, best of luck with any applications you make, and it could be that you see us sometime soon.